Hi, and I hope you are doing well today. Welcome to our week 3 of our course. Now, so far we covered some basic aspects in Python, and today I wanted to show you one of the more popular tools we use to write Python code. We already saw Trinket as part of our assignments from last week. I also demonstrated last week writing code using idle. Today, though, I will show you how to use yet another tool, and this one is called VS Code. It's made by Microsoft, and it is a free and open source application. Now the VS in VS Code stands for Visual Studio. Microsoft does make another development application called Visual Studio, so just Visual Studio without the word code in the name. So please don't get confused by the two. They both have the same logo, but use different colors. VS Code has a blue icon color, while Visual Studio is purple. Now VS Code is a fully integrated development environment, or IDE, and it has so many features and functionality. So today, my goal is to show you how to use this tool, and the more you use it, the more you will become comfortable with it. Now, of course, there is a learning curve associated with the application, and hopefully after this class, you will have a good head start. Now, I will also cover the week 3 material. I will also show you some code examples that pertain to formatting outputs from the print function, as well as talk a little bit about the input function. And of course, I will go over the weekly assignments. So, let's get started. Alright, here's a quick and small file to talk about the input function in Python. I wanted to show you that there is actually a long version of typing up or using the input function versus a more streamlined version. So the long version is basically to just do it on 2 lines, where you say print, we'll call the print function, and then pass it some sort of a prompt. Okay, so here I'm saying please enter something. So that's what is going to be printed on the console. And then I'm going to create a new variable called user underscore input underscore value, and I'm going to assign it whatever gets inputted by the user up here. Okay, so this took me 2 lines to do it, and the output is going to be, let's run this code. Here, I get a prompt for the user, please enter something, and I'm going to say hello, then hit enter, and then the program is concluded, and I'm back to the command line prompt. All right. So it's doable, but I did it in a long version using 2 lines of code. The more streamlined version is to combine basically both of these into 1 line of code. So instead of having a prompt on 1 line and then a variable that equals to the input function, I'm going to basically merge them together. So I'm going to have a variable name. I'm going to set it equal to the input function, but instead of having a blank input function like I did up here, I'm going to include the actual prompt in my input function as an argument. Okay, so this is the short version of using the input function. So I'm going to create 2 variables, one called first underscore name, and it's going to be an input function that prompts the user with please enter your first name. Whatever the user enters, they hit enter. Then it's going to go on to the next line of code, which is another input function. This time is going to be called age. And I'm going to prompt the user with the text, please also share your age. All right, so let's run that. Just confirm that it is running. Please enter your first name. Let's say Nazar. Age 51. Enter, and then no more code to run, so we exit our code. Okay. Now I wanted to demonstrate something that's quite interesting. You would think that because I entered a number for my age in my input function, basically here, I entered 51. So Nazar is a sequence of letters, so you would think that this is of type string, all right? While age is just a bunch of numbers or a couple of numbers, then it should be of the type integer. That's what we learned last week, right? But let's try that out. Let me do actually 2 print statements. Print, I'm going to get the type, because we learned about the type function last week. So type, first name. Okay, and alright, so I'm going to print the type of first name, which I assume is going to be string, and let's also print the type age, which I assume is going to be integer. So let's run that, see what we get. I'm going to Nazar 51. Interesting. So for Nazar, I got the data type string, which is expected, but why am I getting a string for 51? The reason is because by default, the input returns a string data type. All right, so this is something by design. When Python was created, when the input function was designed in Python, whatever gets captured is a string data type. All right, now if I want 51 to be actually captured as a integer data type, then I need to come up here and convert this entire function with all its arguments using the int method, or the int function, I'm sorry. So int is yet another built-in function in Python that allows you to convert something, whatever it is that you pass it in the parentheses, into an integer data type. Okay, so now if I type 51 it's, through the input function, it's not going to be seen by Python as a string data type, but it's going to be converted into an integer data type, so it's going to be an integer data type. All right, now I can do the same thing also. There's an str function that basically, as you guessed it, would convert a data type from something to string. All right, so if I run this now and enter Nizar 51 again, there we go. So Nizar is string, that hasn't changed, but now my 51, my age, has been converted to int. Now, why is this important to turn 51 into int? Well, because if you ever want to use it in mathematical form, it has to be of the data type integer. You cannot have a string of 51 and then add it to 5 and get an answer. If you're going to do math equations, the data type has to be integer or a float, depending on what you're doing exactly. Okay, so that's part of the reason why when we collect a number from a user, that we basically convert the input function into an integer data type. Okay, now this file is pretty much about print function and then formatting the output of the print function. So we talked about printing last week, but there is more to print function than what I covered last week. So basically I have two variables here. I have a name variable, which is assigned the value of Jack, and it's a string type because it's double quotes. And then I have an age variable, and it's equal to 50, so it's integer. Now in my print function, we saw that we can output a string, and then if I want to mix a variable with it, I can use what is called concatenation. So concatenation is when you concatenate, or when you consolidate, or when you add things together, combine them together. So I'm going to be showing you different ways of how this can happen. One way, well, we saw last week we can just use a comma, okay? But there's also concatenation, which uses the plus sign. So I'm going to say my string, I'm going to print out a string which says my name is, followed by a space, and then I'm going to concatenate the value of the variable name, and then I'm going to concatenate after that space, and my age is space, and then I'm going to concatenate the value of the variable age, and then I'm going to concatenate a period. Okay, so that's what this is doing. This print function can, mix the string with a variable, and instead by using concatenation as opposed to using commas as we've seen last week. All right, but let's see what happens here when I run this code. All right, so I get an error, and the error basically says can only concatenate string, not int, to string. All right, so basically what this is saying is you can't combine, or you can't concatenate a string value to an integer value. You can only combine strings to strings. Okay, so that's one of the drawbacks of using concatenation, is if you want to concatenate, you have to concatenate the same data type. The one workaround is to basically, like we learned from the input function moments ago, is I can convert this, well, age is a data type integer, right, because it's equal to 50, and I cannot concatenate an integer to a string. All right, all these things are strings. This is a string because it's double quotes. This is a string data type because it's, again, double quotes. And then age is the only one that's kind of, standing out. It's an outlier. We cannot just combine an integer with everything that's string. So just like I converted the input in my input example into a integer, I can take an integer and now I can combine it, convert it to a string like that. So I call the str, which is short for string, I can call the string function, which is built into Python, and then I pass it the variable that I want to convert it to a string. So whatever the data type of age is going to be now converted to a string. So this age 50 in the background will now change to age 50 like this. All right, we're not going to see it, so let me undo it. But that's what the string method does, or the string function does. So now if I run this, again F5 for short, it runs without any errors. Okay, so that's one way of handling concatenation and specifically combining non-string values. Now this is what we saw last week. This example here, let me just get rid of that. So this is this example we saw last week. We basically saw that you can say a string and then comma, a variable, comma, and then go another string and then all that. So if you run this, it also runs the same way exactly. Okay. Actually, there is an extra space here. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Now we don't need a space here because if you remember, the print function has an automatic or a default separator, which is a space. Okay, so I don't need to include a space here like I did here. All right, so the default separator is a space, so it gets added right away. So now if I run this, let me get rid of that. Let's run this again. All right, it runs fine, and now there is no extra space like I saw here. Okay. All right, let's go back here. Let me comment this out. Let me come down here and uncomment this. Now using the print function, the output can also be formatted. So if you notice here in my print function, before the double quote starts, I have the letter F. Now this is not a typo. So F is short for formatting, and this is, I think, starting in Python 2. Not sure if it's 8, but one of the Python versions. This was added. And down here, I'm going to show you some old formatting options that we used to use. But this is the de facto or the go-to type of formatting now. So you basically, inside your print function, but right before the double quotes, you include the F letter. And the F letter basically is going to tell the Python interpreter, hey, I want to format my output in a specific way. So this is a very simple way of doing or showing you the formatting options. So I have my name is, and then my variable is not separated by commas or not concatenated using the plus sign. It's just basically written out but surrounded by braces. Okay, so my name is name and my age is age. So you can see that this formatting option is cleaner, it's nicer, not a lot of commas that might confuse people, but and also just one single set of double quotes. Here I have to put double quotes, comma, variable, then double quotes, then variable, then double quotes. So it's a little bit confusing. Okay, so this is more streamlined. This is the new formatting option. Again, I'm not sure if it's Python 2.8, I'm sorry, 3.8 or which version of Python it was, but it's something new. And if I run this now, it works the same exact way. So basically, you take the variable name that was here, and when you surround it by braces, or squiggly brackets, some people call it, and append the or precede the double quotes, basically your string value, you precede it with the F letter, then the print function is going to understand that I'm going to format the string using the formatting option in Python. Okay, so I think this is much more cleaner. So it's one way to format your string using the F formatting style. Now again, this is kind of a breakthrough. Again, I say breakthrough because when you start, or if you've been coding for a long time, or even if you're coding now, and then you see that language progressing from year to year to year, it basically the progress is usually an improvement. So this is kind of new to us, or at least new to me. Not now, but in the last few years. But I used to code this way, okay, and this was not pleasant, but that's what was available to us. So let me comment this one out, and let me show you. The old way we had a format called, or actually a method called .format. Now let me just uncomment all that. Here we go. So if you have a string, okay, so this is a string because it's surrounded in double quotes. When you have a string object can have multiple methods. Now, the word object and the word methods is something that we haven't learned about yet, but that's part of object-oriented programming. And we don't need to get into that discussion yet. We will later on. But basically, a string is an object, okay, or actually it's a class, and classes have methods. Methods are basically functions. So functions are exactly the same thing as methods. The only difference is if a function is a standalone function, meaning it doesn't belong to a class, then we call it function. But if a function belongs to a class, in this case the string class, then this function, we call it a method. Okay, that's kind of like a distinctive difference between them, but for now that's what it is. So format, again, it's a method because it acts like a function. It takes arguments, but it's also part of a an object, so or part of a class. So it's that class is a string. So I have this string. My name is fname. I'm age years old, and then I call the dot notation, so I can call the method called format. And now I have to define what fname is, and I have to also define what age is. So within the format arguments, I'm going to say, well, fname is equal to John, and age is equal to 36. So John is going to replace fname, and 36 is going to replace age. All right, so that's one way of doing it, is by calling the dot format method of the string class. Another way to do it is also the dot format method, but this time instead of specifically giving it a name, I can just call it using index numbers. So index are zero based, meaning that we start from 0 and then the counting continues 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So 0 basically means this is the first variable, and then 1 is basically the second variable, and so on. So if I say my name is 0 index, I'm 1 index years old, and then I call the dot format method, then John is in the 0 index location and 36 is in the 1 index location. So 0 is going to fill this location and 36 is going to fill this location. All right, so when I run it, it should say my name is John, I'm 36 years old. All right, now if you don't want to control the index notations, but you're sure that the order is going to be correct, then I can use this approach. I just say my name is Braces, I'm Braces. Okay, let's just keep it. So this means that this first item is going to go here, and then this one is going to go here. If I had a third squiggly braces, then I need to have a third item here, and so on. Okay, so this doesn't, this does specify that the order has to be exactly correct. This one specifies that the numbers have to match the numbers, meaning that this is the index location 0, so this is going to be this. This is index location 1, so it's going to be this. All right. Here, I don't specify index location numbers, but this is the first item, this is the second item, so this is going to be the first item, and this is going to be the second item. Okay, so let's run this for now, F5, and again, I get the same exact thing. All right. Now, if I go back to this example here, if I change this to 1 and then change this to 0, okay, then even though this is the first one, but it's index 1, so index 1 means it's the second item, which would be 36, and then this is index 0, which is technically the first item, that would be John. So this is going to say my name is 36, I'm John years old, just because I control the sequence using the index notation here. If I run this, there we go, my name is 36, I'm John years old. All right. So again, this is this technically still works. The dot format function still works and available, but again, the F formatting is much cleaner and leaner and streamlined. Okay. Now there's also another way of old formatting. Get rid of that. Let me bring this in, where we use the percentage sign or the modulus operator. Okay, we didn't talk about operators yet, but we will be talking probably next week. So this sign, this percentage sign called modulus, basically is a way of formatting, and there are different. Well, I guess if you look in the documentation, you're going to find that. For example, I'm using modulus S, which is for strings, but there's also modulus D, which is for digits or for basically numbers. All right, so there's more than just modulus S and modulus D. So if you just do a search in the Python documentation on formatting using modulus, it's going to give you a slew or a whole table of what you can or how you could format the different values using the modulus formatting option. So here, all it is just, again, all within one double quotes. Your variables are going to be modulus s if it's a string, and then modulus d if it's a number, and then after the string value you do the modulus character, and then within parentheses you pass the variable names, which are defined up here. Okay, and then I'm going to print it out. So I put everything in a greeting variable, and then I'm going to print out the greeting variable. And so if I run this code now, F5, I get hello Jack, exclamation, you are 50 years old. All right. So again, this is just another way of how we used to do formatting. It still works today if you still want to use it, but again, there are more leaner and streamlined options, to choose from. All right. So for our weekly material, we have our typical overview, assignments, and resources sections. Now, this week's overview section has many videos to watch, and I please urge you to watch all of them. They will help you with understanding the assignments, the requirements, and so on. Again, please make sure to watch all of them. Then under the assignment section, you can see we have 3 assignments this week. First is the weekly attendance check. Now, I sent out an email or an announcement about this already, but basically, you need to show your school that you are in attendance during this current week. And to prove attendance and be marked as present during each week, you need to submit an assignment in class. But if for whatever reason you're unable to submit an assignment during the respective week, then please complete this attendance check assignment to prove that you are present in class. Just please make sure that you do it in the week we are currently in. But if you do submit an assignment during this week, then you don't need to do the attendance check. If this is still confusing, please email me and we'll discuss it. Next assignment is Introduction to VS Code. Now the video up here called Intro to VS Code will cover this assignment in great details, so please make sure you watch it. I will also cover in this video more information about downloading and using VS Code. And then the last assignment is about our final project. Please make sure to watch the final project ideas video because that will help you to complete this assignment successfully. And of course, if you have any questions about anything that is class related, please reach out to me via the Canvas inbox or in the Q&A forum, or email me directly at ndejani@rise.education. So here is the download website that you can download VS Code. Again, remember, VS Code is blue icon, but Visual Studio from Microsoft also is a purple icon. They both look the same, but just so you know that you're on the right page. Now, choose which version you want to install, Windows or Linux or Mac. I'm on a Mac, so I clicked on Mac and I already downloaded it. So once the file has downloaded, open it up. Here it is. And when you first open up Visual Studio, you get the welcome screen. Now, I already installed Visual Studio, so you might get a different looking screen where it's going to ask you to set up the environment. But again, it's a simple walkthrough of maybe 1 or 2 screens, and you can also skip it if you like. But this is what opens up. This is Visual Studio, that's the interface. And for example, I can customize this view right away because I don't like the black background. So one way I can do this is by going to the settings, and then go to settings, and then go to workbench, and then appearance. And then here I can change the color theme to be one of those. So I'm going to go with light, or I can go light modern. Now I get this looking white background, which is what I like. Okay, but you can also make changes to, for example, in the text editor, you can change the font size, change it to something bigger or smaller. It's up to you, but you have full control over the settings. All right, now this is the interface. Okay, on the left we have some icons. Here we have some tabs for any pages that we open. All right, and then we can close them by clicking on the X. Up here we can view different parts of the interface, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So let's say we want to create a new file, okay, because that's what the assignment is asking us. I didn't install Python or anything yet, through Visual Studio, because Visual Studio is not just a Python editor. You can write different types of code, programming languages with it. All right, so I'm going to do new file, and select the file type. I'm just going to make it well, I'm going to click on new file. And so now I have an empty file. Or you can also go up to file and then new file and then click here, new file as well. All right, so here I'm going to do print. Now, so far, no one knows that this is Python or what kind of language, and even down here, it just says plain text. Okay, so print, my name is John Doe, close parentheses, and another print statement, and I'm going to say, and paste. All right, now, so let's file, and then let's save it. Now I'm going to save it as a, I'll save it as anything. I'm just going to say week2.py. That's 2 test.py. All right. Now down here, you notice that it's a Python file because I named the file with the .py extension, and then this popped up because that's the first time, for example, you use Python. So it says, do you want to install the recommended Python extension from Microsoft for the Python language? So do say yes, install it, because we need that language and we need all the support we can get with Python for VS Code. So I'm going to click on install, and notice what's going to happen now. It took me to, remember these icons here on the left? The last one is called extensions. Okay, now extensions basically is just that. Just like in a, if you remember when you use web browsers, you can add extensions to your web browser, which basically adds functionality and features to your browser. All right, these are third-party snippets or little applications that enhance the functionality of your application. Okay, so in extensions, we have a lot of different extensions. These are third-party tools that have been written for VS Code, and this one is Python extension from Microsoft. Here, this is the rating by how many people. This is how many times it's been downloaded. So this has been downloaded 122 million times. Okay, and you can download it from the internet. Now, a word to the wise. Again, these are third-party products. Okay, so just make sure that the rating is high. Again, 589 is, I always like to see something in the thousands, not just, 589 ratings. But the fact that it's been downloaded so many times, that's comforting. You always have to check, who is the provider or the developer or the publisher of this third-party extension. Read all about it first. Okay, make sure that this is the extension that you want. But again, if you know that this is the extension you want, you don't have to verify it. You already know that it's good to use. So now it's been installed, okay, and you can uninstall it if you want. That's just an easy button. If you want to look at more extensions, you can click on the extension tab, and well, actually click on it. And right now it's only showing me this one. So if I erase it, or actually if I just clear it, okay, then it's going to. Okay, so the installed ones are here, but then now it loaded so many other extensions for me that you can play around with. Okay, if you want something that's just specifically for Python, then you can just type Python in the search, and then it's going to return anything that's Python related. Okay, so these are all different extensions that have to do with Python. So again, just make sure that you read each one of them, see how many times they've been downloaded, what's the star rating. Some of them have been crossed out. Let's see if I can show you an example. Alright, I can't find an example now, but sometimes you will find an extension that has been crossed out. So that usually means it's been no longer supported and no longer available. So, that's just a little bit of piece of information. Okay, so back to this interface again. This left navigation bar, and then this is the major editing part, because you can see up here we have different tabs. Okay, and just like in like in the web browser, you have different tabs. You can also have tabs here. To close something, you just click on the X. All right, close that. All right, so now we're back to the code file that I just created. Now to run this, there are a couple of ways. And if I right click on it and then say run Python, the assignment says to say run Python in file in terminal. Okay, so I'm going to click that. Now what this is going to do is it's going to open up a little section at the bottom here, that's the terminal for me. So I already got an error. It says unterminated string literal detected at line 2. So line 2 here, we already get a squiggly bracket, or not a squiggly, but this little red line, just kind of like in Microsoft Word, where you have a grammar error or you have a spelling error, you get these little characters. So I have a double. There we go. All right. Now if I run this, I can now run it by clicking on this play button, or again I can right click and just say run Python here. Okay, so let's try this play button. Now down here in my terminal it run. Okay, now actually let me show you this. In the top right corner I have these icons that allow me to modify the view. So as you can see here, this is a toggle for the primary sidebar. So this is the primary sidebar. If you don't want to see this right now, you do see it because it's black. If I click on it, then it becomes white, and now it's been hidden. Okay, if I'm going to bring it back, just click on it, now it shows up. Okay, down here this basically says this is a toggle panel also for this lower part, because again you can see where, you know, how the icon looks. So I click on it, then the lower part disappeared. If I want to show it again, then click on it and it shows up. Same thing with the right panel. Okay, nothing to show right now. And then also you can customize it if you want. You can choose the layout as you wish, what you want to include, what you don't want to include. Okay, I'm going to escape out of it. All right, now down here there are a few other tabs. Problems is, I'm not sure if you paid attention, but when I had this error here, okay, next to problems it had a 1. Okay, so if I'm here and you know, I didn't pay attention to the error, but if I look on the left side, I see problems is 1. Basically, when you click on it, it's going to tell you exactly what the error is. Okay, it's going to tell you the line number and the column. Okay, so once you fix it, problems are gone. Okay, now this is very helpful. Specifically if you, again, this is a 2-line file, but if you're working with code that's, you know, thousands of lines long, then it would be nice to see all of them right here. And also when you you know, when you have an error, and let's bring this back, all you have to do is just double click on it, and it's gonna take you right to this to where the error is. Okay, so right now I'm here. Let's double click here. See, the cursor switched from up here to exactly where the error is. Okay, so that's a very nice and nifty tool. Terminal is where your code will be displayed. Debug is something we're going to be talking about in a future week. Ports is if you want to, I think, connect to an outside machine, or have an outside machine connect to you. And down here on the bottom right, it tells you which version of Python you're running. So right now it's 3.12.2, but if you want to change it, you can click on it, and then it opens up the different Pythons that are installed on your computer, and you can choose which one you want to use, you know, to run your code. All right, let me escape out of that. All right, let's fix this one more time. All right, and then we're going to run it. Play button, and we verify that it runs. My name is John Doe. Fun fact, I love learning about artificial intelligence. Okay, also on the left side here, again, this is Explorer. This is the File Explorer. So if you have a folder open, or if you have an entire project open, you're going to find all your folders and files here. You can search if you want also. That's an editing searching tool. Source control. Source control is basically, it's a way to control your source. Source meaning your code files. And it's a way for version controlling as well. So what is that, and why is that important? Well, normally if you're working on code, you don't want to save it to your local computer because, you know, God forbid your computer gets stolen or destroyed, or your hard drive is not readable anymore, then all your hard work is not accessible and is lost. Okay, so you need to store your code somewhere on the cloud, or somewhere in a repository that is backed up, that's secure. Other words, not your local computer. Okay, so source control basically gives you a repository to do that, but not just as a storage repository, but also every time you work on your code, you make changes, the code gets a new version. So say, you know, I wrote this code, okay, and I'm happy with it. I check it into my repository, and it gets version number 0. And then the next day I work more on my code, so I check out the file. I do changes, I'm happy with it, I save it, and then I upload it back, or I check it into my repository again. So now I have a file that has two versions, version 0 with changes I did yesterday, and then version 1 which changes I did today. This is very important because, again, God forbid you publish version 1 and somehow it breaks or doesn't play well with the rest of your code and it's a disaster and it's a production application, then you need to revert or reverse your code back to version 1. And you can do that very, very quickly once you have source control set up and it's part of your continuous development, continuous integration type environment for your application. Okay, so that's where the IDE part comes in with VS Code. It's an integrated development environment. It's not just you write code, but you can do, again, source control. You can do extensions. You can do testing. You can do so many things with it. And speaking of testing, this is the testing beaker, and here you can create testing scenarios. Again, that's a little bit more detailed than what we want to cover for an intro to VS Code, but this is the assignment. This is VS Code. Again, download it, install it, open it up, configure it for Python like we did, create a new file, call it anything you want, make sure it's a .py extension, write the code just like the assignment says, and then basically run it and confirm that you get this output, and then take a screenshot of this whole page that shows the code and shows the output with no errors, and then submit the screenshot to the assignment area. All right. Again, if you have any questions, I know I covered a lot, different topics, different skills, different tools, so it can be confusing. You're more than welcome to watch this video over and over again. And of course, if you do want to reach out to me, please reach out at any time. Email is the best way to go, or the Q&A forum, or the Canvas inbox, of course. So thank you for watching. I look forward to working with you, and have a nice week. Take care, and bye for now.